Hello, welcome in. My name is Jennifer. I am a psychic medium, a sage, a mystic, if you will, a witch to some. I am a mother, a daughter, a sister, a friend. I've been a wife, and I am many other things in this lifetime. I've had many experiences. I'm going to be using this platform to tell my story. I'm turning 58 years old this year, and I have spent a lifetime hiding who I am for many reasons. Um, and none of those seem to be fitting into my life at this stage. So I've decided to use this platform to tell my story. I'll be doing it in bits and pieces. Um, every story that I tell is based on my own personal experience. Yes, I was there. It happened to me, happened for me, whatever you want to call it. Um, so, welcome in. I'm glad you're here, and I'm going to get started. So, I was born to a mother and a father. My mother was, she's still alive. She's going to be 88 this year. This is 2026 June, by the way. Um, she was born to two Irish parents. So my mother is 100% Celtic. So her bloodline is pure of the Celtic witch. Um, and I'll leave that there for a moment. She had me when she was 30 years old, just actually right before her 30th birthday. My father, uh, I am Basque from his side of the family. I don't know very much about that side of the family. He passed away 20 something years ago. I didn't really know him. I only met him a couple of times when I was a young girl, and it was very brief interactions. He left before I was one. Uh, so I'll get to him as well. But his background was Basque. That's at the tippy top of Spain. Basically, the traveling gypsies, I guess we could call them. Also, his mother, that's on his father's side. And on his mother's side, my grandmother was born on a Cherokee Indian reservation in Oklahoma. So uh, that's where my grandfather met her, was in Oklahoma. My mother and father met in Los Angeles, California, in the early 60s. And before they were married, my mother got pregnant. She was 20 years old. And basically, her father told her that she wouldn't be able to have the child. It would be an embarrassment because she was not in wedlock, even though she was 20. But the sign of the time, sign of the programming. So she was sent away to a wayward house so that the neighbors and everyone wouldn't know that she was pregnant. And she gave birth to a son that she was not allowed to hold or see or anything. She signed all rights away, including the right to contact that child anywhere down the road. 5 years later, by this time, my mother and my father had gotten married. Uh, so my mother was pregnant again after 5 years. So now she's 25, roughly. And she gives birth to a daughter, which is my older sister. And then right before she was 30, so actually she was 24. Um, and then right before she turned 30, she gave birth to me, and I am the baby. Uh, let's see. My biological father left, like I said, before I turned one. He had another woman pregnant at the same time that my mother was pregnant with my sister. So yes, I have half siblings. That particular pregnancy, he's my half brother, and he's in very, very close proximity, within a couple of months age of my my older sister that is my sister from both of my parents. I hope that makes sense. He has a brother and I believe 2 sisters, so those would all be my half siblings. I do not have contact with any of them. I think a couple of them don't want to have contact with me at all. They've held a grudge or held resentment since I was born. And when I did try to reach out to them much later in my life, in my 40s, um, it was just difficult to form connection with them at that time due to extenuating circumstances that isn't really necessary for me to talk about here, but it is necessary for me to be able to tell my story. So that's all I'm going to say about them. Let's see. Like I said, I'm the baby. I was born in 1968. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of different facets that I now know lend itself to me being a psychic, to me being hardwired the way that I am and having the experiences that I have had in this lifetime. I was born in July. Oh boy, Mercury retrograde is coming, and you're soon going to find out that I research astrology heavily and I use it in my daily life along with helping a lot of my clients. And so, anyway, Mercury is going retrograde in a few days. It's in the sign of Cancer, and when Mercury goes retrograde, which happens 3 to 4 times a year, and it stays there for almost 4 weeks at a time, everything communication is a wobble. So, and I am highly affected by it. So I apologize now if I keep bringing words together. I'll just take 2 and 3 words and make them one word. And this is just what my brain does. Okay, so I don't have any memory of my biological father until I met him when I was 12 years old. And I'll get there in another video. My stepfather came in when I believe I was around 2 years old. He was 15 years older than my mother. We didn't, nobody even thought twice about that, except for children at school used to ask me if he was my grandfather, or they would make fun that he was so old. And that really hurt my feelings because I considered my stepdad to be my daddy. He was my best friend. And I just thought he was the best thing ever. He passed away when I was 8 years old. That's why I'm using past tense with him. And again, in another video, I will speak of that. So stepdad, John, he had 3 children. They were all in their 20s when he came into our family. So I wasn't able to really bond with those 3 step siblings, even though I admired and I really looked up to all of them. So yeah, so I don't have any contact with them today either. They fell away very shortly after my stepfather passed away when I was 8. I'm going to keep these videos around 30 minutes. If anyone leaves comments and they want me to make them shorter or longer, please let me know. I'll be as accommodating as I possibly can to keep you engaged. At 3 years old, this is my earliest memories. 2 really. I think I was just turning 3 years old, so technically. So I was 2 years old, but we lived in a 2-story house. We moved around a lot after my stepdad came into the picture. We were still living in Los Angeles. I just have glimpses, memories of a 2-story house. I've confirmed this with my mother throughout my life that it was a 2-story house. I drew the house, parts of the house, to my mother to prove to her that I could remember these things at 2. Yeah, she's the one who said that I was 2 years old when we lived in that house. So yes, 2 years old. So this would be 1970. Big memory is me falling down the stairs a couple of times. So I digress. I'm going to go back to being born July 16, 1968. In astrology, we have a natal birth chart, and within that chart, everyone has one. And within that chart, we have all of these placements of all these zodiacal signs with the planets and something called houses. So some of you will be familiar with this and some of you will not. If you want to reach out to me, we can meet on Zoom. And we can work one-on-one, and I can help you to understand your natal birth chart and how that applies to this lifetime for you. Basically, it's a blueprint for life. We choose it before we come in. So I'm a Cancer. So, when someone sees you outside and they're like, hey, what's your sign? I would say I'm a Cancer. But within my natal birth chart, my moon sign is in Aries and my rising sign is Virgo. I have a very unique birth chart. It doesn't look like others. I've worked with a couple of hundred people and their birth charts, and I have yet to see someone's chart that looks like mine. Some similarities, but mine's pretty unique. And again, I'm just going to keep saying I'm not trying to set myself apart or say that I'm special or that I'm unique in some special way, shape, or form, just to really enhance the fact that there are many facets to being a psychic and to having all of the experiences that I've had in this lifetime. I just saw 1111 on the clock for anyone who follows numerology or sees synchronicities through numbers. I also study numerology. So 3 years old, I'm looking at notes, by the way, because I'm so ADD. 3 years old, my earliest memories, being in this 2-story house. Now, I don't know if, I'm sorry, I was 2. And then at 3, my earliest memories of dead people being in my bedroom. Now, at that age, I was sharing a room with my older sister. She's 5.5 years older than me. And we had a very tiny black and white TV in our room. It was a 13-inch black and white TV. Sorry, I have to look away because my ADD. And also, I'll critique myself like hell if I keep looking at the camera and I can see myself working on it. So I, when it was dark in the room, if there was any type of light, any type of like just a smidge of light coming through the drapes, or if we had a night light in the corner, not necessarily shining on the television screen. Now, remember, it's just a little 13-inch screen, and it was on our dresser, and it was across the room. But I could see movement in the screen. I could see people. So the television's off, but it's like I could see the reflections of people walking around my bedroom that weren't physically there for anyone else to see. That was my first, that's the first memory I have of being aware of something. And then that grew to me being able to see them, feel them, hear them, know that they were there within the bedroom. I didn't have to look at the television anymore. This grew over the next year or so, I would say, between the ages of 3 and 5. Things are blurry for me. My life was a lot. So let's see, at 3 years old. Okay, at 3 years old, my mother has said this to me my entire life, but as a little girl, in her eyes, I was a force to be reckoned with. I'm 57. She still says this to me. And it was never said to me in a positive light, ever, still to this day. But that's okay, because I'm coming to terms with who I am and why I'm here. I'm supposed to be a force to be reckoned with. I'm not supposed to fit. I'm supposed to be loud and big and a lot and in your face. So at 3 years old, I found some change on the sidewalk. I was out front playing with children. My parents were inside, and yes, this was like 1971, and we were allowed to play in front of the house without the adults being out there. There were some other kids out there. I found this change, and about 2 houses down was the corner of the block, and around the corner was a liquor store gas station combo, and my daddy would walk me over there all the time. And on the candy shelves, the bottom rack, for those of you that are a Gen Xer like me, were all the penny candies and the nickel candies, and that was little separate, jawbreakers, bubble gums, little tiny boxes of like Boston baked beans or lemon heads or red hots or suckers or bazooka bubble gum with a little comic strip wrapped around it. There was a lot of little penny and nickel candies. And so I had this little boy that I was playing with, and I found this change, and I said, come on, let's go to the store and get candy. And I didn't tell anyone where I was going. So we walked to the little store, and the clerk, of course, recognized me. And we got our little candies, and we set out back around the corner of the gas station. And I was met with my stepfather standing there with a switch, is what he would call it, a branch off of the tree that was out front of our house. Um, and the look of panic, sheer terror and panic in his face. That he thought someone had scooped me up, I guess, or that I ran away, or who knows what his thoughts were at that time. But instead of, teaching me how to be safe, that was the first time that I was whipped with a switch. And I have to tell you, I know a lot of you Gen Xers were switched, but this fractured something inside of me. And it makes me sad now. But not for me, but just that I would never, because of that, I never touched my children. Um, and it happened a handful of times over the next couple of years, which now I come to find out my mother and my older sister don't remember those things happening, but they weren't around all the time. They weren't around often. And so that's that. Okay. When I was 4 years old, we moved to the Central Valley, still in California. And this is when I first experienced molestation. And the boys that did this lived on the same street that we did. We lived in like a cul-de-sac. One of the boys lived across the street, and the other boy lived down further into the curve of the cul-de-sac. The little boy across the street had an older brother that was closer to my sister's age, and they had a single mother. And so I don't know what was going on in that house. Maybe the older brother showed the younger brother some things. As a matter of fact, that'll come up later in my story because I came face to face with the boy that lived across the street back in my 20s after not having seen him for about 15 years, and brought everything up to the surface. And I had to get therapy, and that'll come up in some other stories. Okay, so I'm not telling anyone that I'm seeing dead people. I now this young abuse, this early abuse from the neighbor boys, more fracturing to the psyche. And what happens through these processes, many psychic mediums experience abuse, neglect, sexual abuse, verbal, mental, whatever, physical, early on. It's part of the story. It's part of the plan. It's part of the fracturing. It's part of the disassociating, which is a big part of being a psychic, is dissociation. That's also something for other videos. We all do it. It's just to the extent. And being in fight or flight as a little girl because we started moving around so much, and then the abuse was happening. And I'm just going to say also that my mother wasn't the most nurturing mother. She was always emotionally overwhelmed. She was depressed. If she wasn't working, she was exasperated constantly. I remember telling therapists in my 20s how she would like be emotionally flailing. Everything was like that. She couldn't handle anything. And so at a very, very young age, 4 or 5 years old, I knew that everything overwhelmed my mother. So going to her with anything was frightening. It was terrifying, quite frankly. Um, so I'm going to apologize because I'm sure I'm going to cry in a lot of videos. Still healing a lot of these parts of myself. I'm not going to edit these videos because I want you to see me fully. I'm tired of hiding who the fuck I am. And where the fuck I've been. It's not who I am today. Okay, so we we were living on the cul-de-sac, and I remember making mud pies with some little girls. And I remember this old man standing next to us, kind of hovering over us, watching us. We were sitting on the sidewalk in front of my house. My daddy never let me leave my front yard. So if I was going to play with anyone, the neighborhood kids had to come to me. So, mind you, my mother had told my stepfather, okay, so I'm going to go backwards again. My biological father was an alcoholic and a pill popper. That's what my mother always said. And my stepdaddy was alcoholic. And I think when I was around 3, my mother confronted my stepdaddy and said, either you get rid of the alcohol or I'm going to take the kids and leave. And so he quit drinking. And my mother professed to be a born again Christian, Pentecostal Christian, since she was 16. And so their idea was to take themselves back to church, including myself and my older sister. And so that started when I just remember being in church. That's it. We were in church. And it was a Pentecostal church. So this is laying of the hands, speaking in tongues. Sunday school was for the children. They put us in a separate building in the back of the church, but I begged my daddy to let me sit in the big people church, and I would just bat my eyes at him, and he'd let me get away with anything practically. But he was hyper controlling, and I was never allowed to ask questions or have an opinion or insight, or I would get some kind of punishment, physical punishment. Um, let's see. Also, if I didn't finish my dinner, I was made to sit at the table. If I was too fidgety at the table, I would get in trouble, and I was very fidgety. I fell out of my chair all the time. Uh, if I asked my mother for help with my homework, my dad wouldn't allow it. My mother wasn't the best cook, and she would feed us some really gross things, and like liver and onions or shit on a shingle, and it was just really gross to me, and it was very difficult for me to eat it, and so I would run to the bathroom and throw up, and I would get in trouble for that. And so I was very dramatic and traumatic as a little girl. And yes, I still idolized this man. He used to put his lit cigarettes between my toes. If I came home from school when I was very little and I fell asleep, which I always would because I was exhausted because I was up all night watching dead people in my room and talking to them. So I would go to school exhausted. Um, and so I would play hard. I was a very physical little girl, very wild child. And I would come home and I would fall asleep, and he would put his lit cigarette between my two toes and let it burn down until it burned me and woke me up. And he thought this was hilarious. I did not. It was traumatic. Um, so, okay, sorry, all over the place. Uh, 4 years old. So we're out on the sidewalk. We're making mud pies, mud patties. And there's this old man, and he is standing over us. We're all sitting on the sidewalk, and I asked this little girl that I don't know very well. I may have been the first or second time that I played with her. I asked her, "Who is that? Is that your grandpa, or is that your dad?" Or and she turned around and said, "Who?" And I realized that what I could see, others could not. So it shut me down. I didn't continue to talk about it. It was confusing, but I was so young that I just kind of internalized it, I guess. And yeah, so I'm 5 years old. Um, my mother has a picture of me celebrating my 5th birthday. That's the only reason why I know where we were still living, still in the cul-de-sac. There's a little girl sitting at the table with me with my birthday cake. My mom says I played with her that one day and that one day only. I was still being molested. I was wetting my bed still. I knew how to wake up in the middle of the night and go pee. But because there was so much activity in the bedroom, I was afraid to get out of the bed. I was afraid that there was something under the bed, or that, something scary was going to get me. And I don't know where I came up with those ideas, other than I do remember my stepdad, not liking that I would get up in the middle of the night and crawl into bed with my mom and him. I know that got in the way of their relationship. And so I do remember him putting me in my bed one night and telling me that, basically like the boogeyman was going to get me from under my bed. And I believed it because I could see dead people everywhere. And so I took it very literal. So I would wake up in the middle of the night, I'd have to pee, and I'd be too afraid. And so I tried every imaginable remedy at this point. I asked my mom to leave a hallway light on, the bathroom light on, leave our bedroom door cracked. And I would stand on my bed and I would practice getting a running start so I could run and jump as far away from the bed, um, so that whoever this scary person was that was under the bed couldn't grab my leg. And I would just get afraid and I would lay back down again, exhausted. I would fall asleep. And because I would fall asleep and sleep very heavily at this point, I would inevitably wet the bed. And then when I would wake up every morning for school, my mom again would be exasperated. She would clear the sheets off of my bed. She would yell at me for peeing the bed. She would shame me for it. It was all about her. But nobody was trying to fix the problem. Nobody was asking me questions. No one was talking to me. And I didn't know any better. Eventually, around 6 or 7, I did grow out of that. I remember the night that I victoriously took a running leap off the bed, made it to the door, ran into the bathroom, sat on the toilet for the first time in years, peed, and was so joyful that this had occurred. And then I was mortified because I had to figure out how to get back into my bed. Yeah, and I don't really remember how I did that, or what occurred after that, but I had overcome that fear. I will tell you that I was a sleepwalker, and that I would leave my bed, jammies off. I don't know where I went. I don't know what I was doing, but I was told I was a sleepwalker. And I think the last time I sleptwalked, I was like 21 years old. And this was when I was living with my sister. We were out on our own. And she told me the next morning that I was sleepwalking and I was ripping the closet doors off out of the hallway. And when she asked me what the hell I was doing, I said I was trying to go to the bathroom. And she said, that's where the washer and dryer is. And I just turned around and went back to bed instead of actually going to the bathroom. And that's, as far as I know, the last time that I actually experienced sleepwalking. Okay, so a very overactive mind while I'm sleeping. Also, a question as to whether or not I really was sleepwalking all the time. And I'll get to that in later stories. Um, okay, let's see. 5 years old. We're coming up to 30 minutes. Molesting 5-6 years. 5 years old. We were here in the Central Valley. I'm still in the Central Valley. I've come back and forth dozens of times. And I was at a little elementary school. I don't really remember kindergarten. First grade was my all-time favorite teacher. Her name was Mrs. Olses. I still remember what she looks like. And it's because I was a really good reader and the other children didn't read yet. And she would put me up in front of the class and I would read for everyone. And it made me feel special for the first time in my life. However, my handwriting was very erratic and it was going to keep me from moving forward to the next grade. And so she brought my parents in to tell them that I really needed to focus on my handwriting, and that at home someone needed to pay attention to me and help me with my cursive and help me to sit still and hold my pencil the right way. Um, and I remember there was a little girl in the first grade who, uh, I think her name was Sarah, and she would come to school every day smelling of urine. And all of the children would spitballs at her and throw things at her and make fun of her, and nobody wanted to be her friend, and they said really mean things to her. And I sat relatively close to her and I could smell the urine, and I knew it was because she was probably wetting her bed just like I was. And so I had a soft spot for her, and she never left my memories. I tried to be nice to her. But I was already getting bullied in the first grade myself, and it was difficult to be friends with her because I was saving myself from the bullies as well. So I think I'm going to end it there. Uh, I I hope that my stories in the future help some of you to heal, to reckon, to come to a reckoning with your lives and your past, or maybe just to give you some insight on what it's like to be born a psychic. It's not like Hollywood makes it look like at all. Uh, I'm not a victim. I don't feel sorry for myself. I just want the world to understand what it looks like for a lot of us. I love you guys. I'll see you soon. Take care.